This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I am joined by trainer Jamie Moore over Zoom. Jamie, how are you doing?
I'm all right, not too bad, thank you, mate. You okay?
I'm all good. I'm all good. Would have liked to have done this interview in happier terms. Obviously, starting off with the last weekend now, Carl Frampton falling short in his bid to become a freeweight world champion. Jamie, just going back to that night and the defeat, how would you assess it now?
Well, same as I assessed it straight afterwards. It was always a big ask. You know, Carl's always been a big super bantamweight. You know, just a normal size featherweight. Herring is extremely big for a super featherweight, so it was a big risk, and it was a calculated risk because we sort of gambled with the fact that we felt Carl had better attributes in terms of timing and distance, and watching Herring before that, you wouldn't have envisaged that type of performance. But I did say during fight week before it that my experience with Carl over the last 3.5 years has always been that the perception you have of an opponent beforehand, you always get a better version of that against Carl. You know, they always seem to step it up against him because he's that sort of name where everyone turns up for. So I sort of anticipated a better version of him. But I probably have to say that even I didn't expect him to be, his judgment of distance, the way he set the traps, those little half steps back, the shoot at the middle. He was much better than I gave him credit for as well. And, maybe Carl is 34 now. Maybe he's not quite the fighter he was. But I'd rather give Jamel more credit for the performance he put in.
Now, obviously, the fight has happened, Jamie. Just going back to before it, what was the initial game plan? How did you guys want to approach the fight?
So I think Jamel definitely expected and anticipated Carl to come and put it on him. So we didn't want to fall into that trap. Our plan was to use Carl's feet because he's got really good feet, and sort of get Jamel coming forward and overreaching, and then for Carl to start timing some single counters over the top early on, and then as the fight progressed, maybe hopefully get a bit of frustration built up, and then once he starts to try and force the fight, then we'd find more openings, and then he'd be able to get him to the midpoint, and he took a bit of gas out of his tank and caused a bit of frustration, and then we'd be able to sort of push him onto the back foot and tire him down the stretch. But he never fell into the trap. He was very patient. He sort of held his feet. He didn't overreach. And as soon as Carl tried to sort of give him any sort of feint, because of the reach advantage he had, he seemed to be able to time Carl onto the shots pretty good early on. And then it was only until about the 4th round Carl got any sort of range and timing. And then by that point, we had a good 4th round. And I was saying, listen, you need to build on that now. And then in the 5th round, he walked into that left hand and got put on the floor. And that was sort of the beginning of the end then, really.
Just going back to, I can't remember, it was the 3rd or 4th round when Jamel cut his eye. It might have been the 4th round because it was then when Carl seemed to kind of take confidence from it. At that stage of the fight, when Jamel cut his eye, what did you make of it?
Well, obviously, he had the same cut last time. I was hoping that another couple of rounds down the line, if Carl could keep having the success he had in the 4th, then mentally he might start having demons from the last fight and stuff like that. But we never got to that stage. So I said to him, try and target that eye. You won't be able to see properly out of that eye, and try and get a foothold. Now you've got you've had good success there. Let's push on with it in the 5th. And he did try to do that, and then Jamel timed him into that straight left down the pipe, which put him on the floor, which probably stopped Carl's momentum in his tracks then. And like I say, that was probably the beginning of where it started to fall apart for us.
You mentioned the size differences towards the beginning of when we started this interview, Jamie. Just on Jamel's front, Was you surprised by just how big he looked on fight night, or did you expect him to look as big as what he was, maybe a bit smaller? How would you assess him in terms of that?
He was massive, yeah, and we knew he was big. Obviously, when we saw him in the ring in Vegas last year, he had his suit on, and he sort of had. When you're out of camp and you're not in training, you can always seem to look bigger than you are. So we were sort of saying, listen, obviously he's a big guy and he's a super featherweight, but once he gets down in weight, that'll be tough for him. But ultimate professional, he was so lean. And the reason why we wanted it to get to sort of 6 and 7 rounds and then pushing down the stretch was for that reason, because, you know, sort of people understand that when you're that tight at the weight, generally down the stretch is where you start to feel it worse. So we was hoping for it to not be so physical a fight early on, which it wasn't, but we expected to have more success from the outside and then start to go second phase, sort of becoming into the middle part of the fight and then pushing down the stretch. But he boxed to a great game plan, and his tactics were pretty good.
Jamie, I know you've already answered this, but I will ask you anyway. Stopping the fight yourself, throwing the towel in for Carl in the 6th round. A lot of people have praised you for that over social media, but just from your perspective, how would you kind of look back on it and your decision to do so?
It was the right call, and you know, people have said it was the right call. I knew it was the right call at the time. It was an easy call to make because it was the right thing to do. So people have said, like, was it tough? It's only a difficult decision because of the pressure you're under in terms of the magnitude of the fight and stuff. But when you know it's the right call, it's the right call. There's no two ways about it. So my first and foremost job as a coach is to protect that fighter. Fighters, by nature, won't protect themselves. You know, the vast majority of them will just keep going until they get themselves hurt. So my job and the referee's job is to protect the fighter from themselves. So I've no doubt I did the right decision. It's heartbreaking at the same time because you know what it means to the fighter, but you can't let emotion become involved. You have to be logical about it. And at that point in time in the fight, Carl had near enough virtually lost every chance of winning the fight. He was about to get stopped. It was quite possible he was going to get knocked out, and I was never going to let that happen because I didn't want him to go out like that. I wanted him to go out on his feet as a proud man, and I've saved him, you know, not for another day, but from any further injury.
Jamie, certainly over this past probably 6 months or so, we've seen some very good stoppages from corners, and we've also seen some maybe questionable ones where maybe fighters should have been pulled out when they weren't. Just with regards to this one with Carl, as a fighter yourself, you've been through it all, and you said yourself in your answer there that in a fighter's mind, they want to continue, they want to give it all, no matter what. They wouldn't pull themselves out effectively. What's kind of allowed you to change that mentality from when you used to fight to being a trainer now, to being able to see it's the right decision to pull somebody out? Because I imagine in your heyday, you wouldn't have wanted somebody to do it for you.
Well, you know, you have to change your thought process from being a fighter to being a coach. If I was as brave a coach as I was a fighter, I wouldn't be a good coach. So you can't compare the two. I understand it's heartbreaking. I said this to Carl. I don't know if you've seen the picture of what was on social media of me stood in the changing rooms afterwards with him. He actually apologised to me and Nige for not being able to win a world title for us. And I said, are you fucking joking me? I don't care. I don't care about you winning a world title for us. All I care about is that you're going home to your family safe. And that's it. You know, of course we want to win the fight. It's stupid for anyone to think otherwise. But that isn't from the offset, that is the goal. Once my fighter gets into a situation where he's been hurt and he's potentially going to lose the fight and gets to the stage where he's going to get himself hurt, a similar situation with Tommy Coyle. Don't forget, I've had my fighters. Stephen Ward was in a war with Liam Conroy. You know, at no point did I think about pulling him out of that fight because it was a competitive to and fro fight. I will only ever pull my fighter out of a fight when I feel like it gets to the point where there's virtually no chance of them winning and they're probably going to get stopped and hurt, maybe hurt. It's the right call. You know, I don't want to sit here and call other coaches because it's not the right thing to do. I can only speak about my own experiences. And I know that whatever that decision I've made so far up to now as a coach, I've made in the best interest of my fighter.
Jamie, just moving forward, Jamel Herring, he said since then he wants to face Oscar Valdez. Just your thoughts if Jamel was to go on to get that fight next?
I think it's a great fight. I think, you know, Valdez, I still feel Valdez will be the favourite in that fight, but Valdez is himself coming up from featherweight. He's probably a bit bigger than Carl in terms of structure, but, you know, Herring's, that was his coming out party, I feel, the other night. And even though he's a little older than Carl, he's probably fresher because of the way he's lived his life. He was in the Marines, and, you know, in terms of experience as a fighter, he's probably still improving a little. So, so I think that's a great fight. You know, especially when you look at stylistically, it's a terrific matchup. And Valdez is a good box fighter. He's got a good boxing brain, but he'll come and bring the pressure. And as we've seen with Herring, he's a very good, well-timed counter puncher on the back foot. So that's a great fight.
Jamie, despite obviously the unsuccessful night with Carl, you did have some success earlier on with Turson by Kulakmet. I hope I've said his name right.
Yeah.
Talk to me about him, because he's certainly, you know, he's starting to take the scene by storm a little bit.
Mate, he is some fighter. And we only had him, I think he was in Manchester for 6 weeks and then over in Dubai with us for 3 weeks. So all in 9 weeks. And he showed some real big improvement. Everything you sort of speak to him about and go through in terms of tactics, picks up straight away and he puts them into practice straight away. So yeah, well impressed. He's such a lovely guy. Can't speak a lot of English at all, but he started getting to understand it a little bit now. And as soon as you put a pair of boxing gloves on him, it just turns into an animal. We've nicknamed him the Tursonator because he has this like cold, calculated face on him as soon as you put the gloves on him. So he really is going to be a big addition to the junior middleweight scene, and I'm looking forward to seeing his progression. Yeah.
What do you see being his progression? You know, how do you see the next, say, year or so playing out for him?
Well, management are looking at him fighting for a world title within 8 fights, so that's how fast they want him to move. And basically, they've wanted him to come and train with us because obviously he's such a good fighter with his own attributes as it stands. But there's other areas what he needs to work on if he's going to be more of a complete fighter. So that's our job at TAS now, is to do that. And he's picked it up really quickly. So if the improvement is shown over the first sort of 6 weeks, if he carries that on for another 6 months, then wow, he's going to be some fighter.
Jamie, final thing on the trip to Dubai, Tommy Coyle was out there with you guys. What's it like, obviously, getting Tommy back out there and effectively trying to continue to create or recreate past memories, what have you?
Well, Tommy's obviously, his fighting days are done. He's slowly going to move into the coaching side of it, and he wants to be alongside us and sort of pick some stuff up, learn his trade a little bit, which I love. And in a little bit of a way, it reminds me of what happened with me and Oliver. So I was helping Oliver out even when I was still fighting in the corner. And then as I sort of retired, started helping him in the corner with the lads, and I learned so much. So I just love having Tommy around. He's such a good character to have around. He's like a little brother or even an older son to me. That's all. He's in between that age. So, but he's just a great character to have around. So it's good for the sort of camaraderie between the lads. and it's great experience for him to be around sort of big fight experience like that as well. So it works for everyone.
Right, Jamie, whilst I've got you, just want to get your thoughts on a few other fights which are coming up. Start off with tomorrow night, Conor Benn, Sammy Vargas. Your thoughts?
Great fight. Really is a good fight. And Conor's probably the most improved fighter in Britain over the last couple of years. You know, we got to the stage where you thought he'd hit his ceiling, and I love his attitude. His attitude is, you know, if he's not a great performance or he makes a few mistakes, he goes away and he works and he works and he works until he fixed it. And he's done that. And his last few performances have been really impressive. I was a massive fan of his dad as well. So I'm a big Conor Benn fan. So I love watching him fight. Vargas is going to give him problems. He really is. But I think you've brought Eddie Hearn and Matchroom have brought him along really well in terms of they've given him the right sort of fights at the right time. And I think this will be the right fight at the right time. I think he'll cause him problems. But I think the lessons he's learned in the past, where he's sort of been clipped and hurt, he'll be more defensively minded. He'll use his power sort of sparingly, I believe, early on. But you can see instinctively, if he gets his opponent hurt, he'll go for the finish. And that's what makes him appealing. So, but I think Vargas will give him a real tough fight. I've got a feeling he might get to Vargas in the end. I think maybe Vargas will get into the midway point. He'll be in the fight. But I've got a feeling that the lessons he's learned from the past, he'll sort of he'll set that foundation out early on in the fight, and then I'm hoping he can sort of get a foothold, and by around 9 or 10, he's got him out of there.
Moving forward to another week, to next week, Liam Williams faces Demetrius Andrade for the WBO World Middleweight title. Will Liam be successful? Will Britain have another world champion, or do you think Demetrius will retain his title, Jamie?
I really rate Williams. I think Andrade's got all the talent in the world, but I don't really. He's not really proven it yet, and I've got a feeling that either way, this is going to be someone's coming out party. Williams can really fight. He can really fight. I think the matchup with him and Dominic Ingles worked really well. I think, you know, the mobility, the switch hitting, the way they train down there suited Liam Williams' style, so it's added something to him. But Andrade is a tricky customer, you know, tough southpaw. But I feel like the way they train at the Ingle gym, it makes it so that southpaws that aren't as awkward as they are to your average sort of fighter. So I really don't know. I really can't pick a winner. You know, it really is a toss-up. I'm rooting for Liam Williams. You know, he's a British kid, and I like him. I love the way he fights. He's got a good style. So I'm hoping he can bring it on for us.
Canelo, Billy Joe, May 8th. We haven't had a chance to speak about it since it was announced, and I don't think we probably will do until that fight. So, Jamie, just your thoughts, kind of, does Billy Joe possess the style to overcome Canelo?
For years, I've always said that the type of fighter which gives Canelo problems is a slick, slippery southpaw. So that is what you've got in Billy Joe Saunders, the epitome of a slick, slippery southpaw. The only thing what's changed in that time over the last sort of 3 years, 4 years since sort of that was the narrative, is Canelo's improved a hell of a lot. His head movement is massively improved over that 4-year period. So his defense, the way he cuts the ring down, the way he sort of sneaks himself into position, he sort of comes under the radar and you don't realize he's applying that pressure or getting as close to you as he is, and then all of a sudden he offloads. So I still think Billy Joe's going to give him nightmares, but I just feel like by around the midway point, Canelo's probably going to have worked him out. But, you know, again, Billy Joe's British fighter, and I want him to be able to go over there and pull it off. Canelo's probably the best fighter in the world at the moment, so it's a big, big ask.
A lot of people see if Billy Joe was to be successful, he would have to go the distance. But then on the flip side, people are pointing to, if he did go to the scorecards, would he get a fair crack? Your thoughts, Jamie? Do you think that is something for Billy Joe to be concerned about?
I mean, you look at the scorecards in the past. I mean, just off the top of my head, the Mayweather one, where, you know, he's quite a big shot out, and he ended up close on the cards. There was a southpaw who he boxed against, who probably could have gone against him, and he ended up getting big on the cards there as well. So there is that worry, but I think a fight of this magnitude now, you've got to hope that a unification fight, you know, it's on American soil. You've got to hope that there's going to be fair judging. You can never sort of guess with a Canelo fight, what type of scorecards are going to come out. Billy Joe punches harder than people give him credit for. I've got to say, you know, Canelo's got a terrific chin. You look at the way he took the shots against Golovkin. So, although I don't envisage Billy Joe hurting him and being able to stop him in his tracks, I'm pretty sure he hits hard enough to get his respect. He's just can he work out the Billy Joe problem? And I've got a feeling that he's got that good a boxing brain that by about 6 or 7 rounds, he'll start getting close and he'll start working the body of Billy Joe. But Billy Joe's a fighter. He'll dig his heels in and he'll fight back. And I think, you know, if he had to put my house on it, I'd probably say Canelo on points. But it's going to be such an interesting fight.
Jamie, you've got Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez in May as well. Just on that front, Jack Catterall said to me a couple of times he was hoping to try to get onto the undercard if it was possible. Do you think that will happen?
I can't see him getting on. I hope he gets a fight around that time so he can get some rounds under his belt as well. And I can't see him getting on the undercard, to be honest. And then I'm just hoping that he gets the winner as has been promised. I think Taylor wins the fight as long as he boxes with his brain rather than getting involved, because I think the only option Ramirez has is to sort of stand and trade, because he can bang. Ramirez can really hit with that left hook. So I think if Taylor gives him options, then that's the only way he finds himself in trouble. I don't think he will. I think they'll get a game plan set out and he'll box to orders and he'll keep it really disciplined, because a fight of that magnitude, you know, you've got to listen to your coach and stick to a game plan. So I'm pretty sure he will do that. But Ramirez is in with a shot if Josh Taylor plays his game and sits and trades.
Devin Haney, Jorge Linares a week after that, I believe. Again, Jamie, how do you see that one playing out?
I think obviously Linares has seen better days, but he's still fantastic, you know, fast counter puncher, carries tremendous power. And Haney's pretty well untested up to this point, even though he's probably one of the most talented world champions out there at the minute. So I think it's a great, timing-wise, it's a great way to put Haney in there with someone who's got a name, who's vastly experienced, who will teach him probably a few lessons in there as well, but will probably make him look good at the same time. So yeah, I think it's good matchmaking.
And then final topic I just want to touch on, Jamie, a lot of talk about Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. Will we see it this year or not? I actually went to speak to John Fury a couple of days ago, and he was kind of alluding to the point in his eyes that there just isn't enough money being put forwards from kind of a site. Just your thoughts. Do you think we will see it this year, Jamie? Do you think we do see Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, or do you think that there just isn't the money to put it on?
I do think we'll see it. And I think the reason we'll see it is, you know, maybe there's not as much money there as was first spoke about or anticipated, but that doesn't mean that there's not enough money for it to happen. They're certainly never going to get as much money fighting other people as they are fighting each other. So I'm sure if they had a figure in their mind and it's not sort of quite hitting that, then I'm sure they're both disappointed at the moment and a little bit deflated about it. But nevertheless, that's still the biggest fight what any of those two can compete in. And I think both of them want to take the fight now while it's hot to decide who's the best out there. You know, they're both very competitive. They both want to be recognised as the best heavyweight in the world. Obviously, Tyson Fury probably is at the moment. And I just feel like that fight is a lot closer than people are anticipating. You know, people think Fury's going to run away with it, which I can understand that argument. But the improvements what Joshua has shown since the Ruiz defeat, to me, suggests that he's still improving. And if that's the case, then, well, number one, it's a scary thought. And number two, we don't really know what Anthony Joshua we're going to get. So it's a great, great fight. And I just think strike while the iron's hot. Too many fights like this, they simmer for too long and then they go off the boil and we never see it at the right time. So I'm just hoping that they can come to an agreement and strike while people want to see it.
Right, Jamie, we will leave that there now, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. I appreciate your time, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
Top man, cheers,